Welcome to the Catholic with a Bible podcast. My name is Tad, a Catholic who reads his Bible. A few years ago, when I was listening to the Bad Christian podcast, I was exposed to a man named Mark Driscoll. And I'm not going to lie, to this day, I don't know a whole lot about him other than he's a non-denominational pastor who is not afraid to yell. I don't know exactly what he was yelling about, but I saw footage of him screaming about, "How dare you!" I honestly couldn't even understand what he was saying. But I found out very recently that Mark Driscoll is a big deal in the non-denominational circles. And he was having a conversation with somebody, and he made the comment how he used to be Catholic. But what he said after that was a little surprising to me. He said, "Oh yeah, my grandmother's a nun." And I just kind of stopped for a second thinking, can you do that? And apparently, after his grandmother's husband had passed away, she said, I want to be a nun. Yeah, I guess that's allowed. It's unusual, but I guess why not? Whenever we meet people, there's usually 3 questions we ask. Number 1, what do you do? Number 2, are you married? And number 3, do you have any kids? And it seems to just go that way unless you decide to become a priest or a nun. If you were to look at a priest, it would be a very odd conversation for somebody to say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" They're a priest. "Hey, do you have a wife?" Once again, it's super uncommon. There's a couple of married Roman Catholic priests out there. Pretty safe bet to say, no, you're probably not married. And then lastly, do you have kids? I hope not. But looking over back at Mark Driscoll's grandmother, if you were to ask her, do you have kids? Yes. Are you married? I'm a widow. She'd have those conversations, but the most important answer is to the question, are you following God in your life? And looking right at her, it's pretty hard to say no. She answered whatever calling she was given. Whenever we receive those calls to religious life, being a priest or whatever, or I feel a calling to married life, that should be something we discern. It shouldn't just be an obvious, this is what I'm going to do type of situation. I mean, I don't care what denomination you're a part of. If marriage is between one person and another person and God, yeah, you better discern that. Maybe you're not even supposed to get married. Who knows? But it looks like Mark Driscoll's grandma has it all figured out. I'm following God. Okay. Realizing matrimony is what I'm called to be doing right now. Okay. That's what she did. And she lived with that marriage until she became a widow. They stayed married. Okay. Believes in marriage until death do us part. And that's when they parted. Then what's she doing at that point? She didn't just do what a lot of people do where they think, oh, I used to be in a relationship, now I need to hop into another one. Not for any other reason than that's what you do. You date, and then when you're not dating, you find someone else to date. No, not at all. At the end of the day, all she wanted to put God at the center of her life. And I feel like that can be kind of hard for us to do because we're not living in God land. We're living in, I'm living in the United States of America. So American culture 100% is going to be at play. You don't read very many books about the romance of discerning whether or not you should get married and ultimately deciding to become a nun or a priest or something. It's always the romance section. Sure, there's the religious section as well, but we don't romanticize that. So we don't see that as a very obvious option that we should think about. Particularly just the option of maybe I'm not supposed to be getting married. Because even if we make the decision, we might be told by people, no, you just haven't found the right person. Maybe. That sounds great. But maybe your calling is to not be married. And that parallels with the person we're talking about today, Anna. She's a character we might just fly by because she doesn't say anything that we have recorded. And she comes up right after Simeon sees Jesus. And he's the one who has the speech, the canticle of Simeon, Lord, you let your servant go in peace, this whole big thing. Anna she saw Jesus and much more quietly went through the same thing that Simeon did. So we don't know a ton of details, but what we do know is she is the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher, and she was advanced in years, having lived 7 years with her husband after her marriage, then as a widow until she was 84. If we were to do a little bit of math here, let's just say she got married at 14. We'll just round up to 16 just to be safe. If she were married at 16 and her husband died when she was 23, that means 23 minus 84. Just over 60 years, this woman did nothing but spend her life in prayer at the temple. And that's not because she was broken. Some people might have viewed her that way, but she had the wherewithal to stop and say, this is my life. This stage of my life is over. What is the next stage? And being able to accept, no matter what, God is going to be at the center of my life. And that understanding allowed her to say, I'm going to move to the temple. I'm going to live as how nowadays nuns live, rather than seeming like there's some status quo we got to live up to. She refocused her life and decided she was going to live with God, spending her entire life, day and night, in worship. And I think that's really cool. But at the same time, we should worship day and night. We should be spending that same quality time with God, maybe with our family, with our wives, our husbands, our children, our parents. She engaged with the Holy Family. It doesn't say explicitly that she did, but just the way how it's framed up, it appears that she would have spoken to them and shared her joy in the love of God with them, and her joy in the love of Jesus, the child who is right in front of her. And I just think that's really cool. And we shouldn't have to complicate our lives that much to realize that's what we should be doing too. Kind of a simple episode, but this is a simple passage. And simple doesn't mean unimportant. So I hope you like this episode. If you want to help me grow this ministry, please share with a friend. But until then, I'm the Catholic with a Bible, and I'll see you next time.
Luke chapter 2, verses 36 through 40. There was also a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived 7 years with her husband after her marriage, and then as a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day with fasting and prayer. And coming forward at the very time, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to whom all were awaiting the redemption of Jerusalem. When they had fulfilled all the prescriptions of the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him.